Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashley Sage. This is my co-host for the day again, Helen. And welcome to our Fairy Chats, number 3. Woo! I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a quick recap. If you haven't watched number 2 or 1 as well, go back, give those a quick watch. They're a quick watch. And we touched on connecting to fairy energy last time. So that was creating space for yourself, creating space and energy, and connecting to nature. So we brought in how important that is, 1, for you, and 2, to connect to fairy to help you create that bond or create the connection so that you can start, having chats with them and creating like a safer place for them to feel open with you, which was great. Everybody seemed to love it. So I'm really excited for that. Hopefully everybody has started their little rituals, which would be great. What else did we talk on? Am I missing anything? I don't think I am.
Not from last time. I think that was
okay. Cool. And then this time we both pulled little cards. We set our intentions, and we do that every time before we do the video as well. I have my own spiritual time, and then I set time aside just to connect to fairy energy, and I know you do as well. So we pulled cards this morning, and ours were pretty similar, actually, which was pretty cute. Because you told me yours first, and then I kind of brought in mine, and I was like, interesting. They kind of they really worked on that one to make sure that the connection was really good, which I loved. So what was that first intention you got? Because it was actually quite beautiful.
Yeah. So essentially the energy was around removing stagnant energies and the fact that at the moment a lot of old systems and old ways of being are being broken down. And well, I say old systems, kind of they're new systems being broken down to the older systems, but they feel old because they've been around for so long. And kind of getting back to the idea of natural magic and spending time, getting rid of what doesn't serve you anymore, but also really understanding guilt that you feel. And this is a strange one because obviously the fairies, their energies are different, very different to ours, and they are very joyous no matter what's going on. Really, they can find joy even in dark times. But I think what they were trying to portray to me today was just that people need to really understand where guilt lies truly if you've done something that you shouldn't have done and that maybe you should be apologizing for, or clearing out, because it's negative karma. And then really understanding what isn't their fault in the same way. A lot of people tend to take a lot of guilt on themselves and think that everything's their fault, and they might have family members that they don't get on with, but they're always made to feel like it's their fault that happens. And people really need to realize the difference between what they are in control of and what they have done wrong, and what they really aren't in control of, and it is somebody else's.
Projected to them. Yeah, that's a huge thing. And I think that really applies, 1, to the fairy world, because their emotional constructs are completely different, right? They don't really sit in that deep, dark energy all the time. They do always try to find the joy and the reasons as to why things are happening, right? So sitting onto guilt or fear or shame, kind of those little emotions don't really resonate with them. They're like, hey, why are you staying there? Like, it's not doing you any good, because it doesn't. And that goes the same for humans, because we've been kind of taught throughout the time, in all our social structures, family structures, friend groups, whatever you want to call it, to kind of sit in that, like, oh, maybe I did something wrong, maybe I hurt somebody's feelings, or maybe I didn't do that right, feeling those emotions. Whereas the fairy vibe doesn't sit there, right? They're like, you know what, it happened, how do we get over it, right?
And they're very honest about it. They're very honest when it really is their fault. They'll say so. They'll hands up, I did that, let's learn from it, let's move on from it. And then, as you say, they think, well, what's the point in sitting there in self-blame if if it just means that you're going to be stagnant for a long time? And that natural magic lends itself to that, because the more you remember how nature operates, nature has issues all the time, but it's gone.
Right? They just keep going. They just keep striving. Like if you think of even just the 4 seasons in with magic and nature, the 4 seasons all have a whole purpose. And even especially like in and around like the beginning of winter or autumn, you know, we think of like, oh, things are dying and oh, the destruction or you know, like windstorms, rainstorms, snowstorms here up in Canada can be quite destructive. And a lot of people feel really bad, right, for nature. And they're like, well, look at what it did to the trees, or look at what it's doing to this area, you know, if there's like a mudslide or like flooding and stuff like that. Whereas in the fairy vibe, of course, it's upsetting, but they always can go towards, okay, well, how do we get over this? Right? Instead of like sitting there in a like a sad, fearful state, they will figure out like, okay, well, now we get to rebuild our houses and we get to have something different. And, you know, like rebuild the structure, like, you know, maybe we can move, right? They kind of think of that. It makes it a little bit harder in real life when something happens to us like that. But if we can kind of sit in that energy just a little bit more, it makes everything we're going through a lot easier, right?
Yes, yes,
Especially the
definitely.
state of the world. And there is a lot of yucky vibe kind of hanging out. So if you can go, okay, this has happened, but how can I make my life better? You know, and if making your life better is like watching a good movie or going for a walk or having a really nice piece of cake, right? Like you can do that. And then you have to think of, okay, how do I continuously make it better? Of course, like not sitting on a crutch, but just relieving that guilt and knowing that there's nothing really you could have done to fix it and that life does go on.
Exactly, exactly. And like you say, that change in that moving with just moving with whatever happens, that is essential to the idea of fairy. They very much change is part of life, as you say. This hello, Toad.
Cody's going to say hi to everybody. He's making his debut, right, on the channel again. It's like, it's been a minute since I've been on camera.
He's come to affirm everything. Yes.
He's like, yes, that. Yeah. He's a really good reminder to what we were actually talking about. Because if I've had a really long day, I'll open the back door for him so he can go in and out. Now that's warmer, he can do that, but he'll run inside and look at me and meow, like yell at me, because he wants me to go outside and have fun with him. So it actually gets me out of my head. So he's a great reminder, like hanging out with nature, in nature, with something that's like not connected to the human psyche is actually really healing. So, you know, he gets me in that vibe, which is really good.
Definitely. It makes you be playful.
He does, yeah, and he definitely brings that playful vibe, which gets me out of my head. Reminds me that things are a little bit better than they are, right? Because some days are better than others. Oh, come here. Okay. Say hi to everybody. No? Okay. Put him on my lap. There we go. But yeah, he definitely is the big one, which does help, right? And just remembering to slow down, think of something that's a little bit less stressful, right? Because you can run on the hamster wheel of stress all the time. But until you do something to get yourself out of it, it's not going to do anything.
Yeah, and I mean, especially animals are a really good link to that idea of natural magic, and as you say, kind of getting out of that headspace. Because, you know, especially as a pet, you know, as a domesticated animal, they have little control over what you do. You might move house one day, because that's what's right for you, and they just have to kind of go with you and get used to the fact that everything's new and everything's different.
Right.
But they run with it. They roll with it most of the time. I mean, sometimes, you know, they can get a little bit stressed and a little bit bothered, but, you know,
they trust stressed, and then they're like, "Hey, I got a new bed."
Exactly, and they trust you. They trust that you know that you're not going to hurt them. You're not going to, you know, you're not going to have done something to their detriment. And I think that's something we have to remember is, you know, things do feel icky at the moment within the world, and it is, you know, things are difficult, but, you know, if you let go of the human, and I know you have to live in the human as a human, you know, regularly, but if sometimes you have to remember to let go of that and remember that you are a natural being, and I think the fairies are really, you know, they're really willing to guide you to remember that, because they really want you to remember that. They want that connection back.
They want, yeah, and that rolls into the next part where I pulled, and it was remembering to believe in magic, to have that, right? Even though we're not watching like magical spells via like Harry Potter style, in our day-to-day world, but remembering that we can connect to this magical essence is really important, and to believe in it, right? Because if we're always being like, oh well, whatever, they're not real, and then going, well, maybe they are, and then the next day you're going like, oh no, that's totally a joke, and then the next day being like, oh yeah, they're totally, like I saw this thing and it totally was magical, and just finding that magical energy in everyday things, right? We've been taught to believe that certain things are just, oh, that just happens, right? Whereas you can believe in magic in every situation. And for example, the other day I had gone out for a drive. I was just having a day. So I went out for a drive, which is my favorite thing to do. And I got out of the city about an hour out. And I was like, okay, I just need to sit in the woods for a second. But I was literally blessed by this whole chorus of birds, right? So that was magical to me. And some people would be like, oh, it's just birds, like they sing all the time. Well, the birds that I encountered, I never encounter within the city limits. So these were beautiful birds all in the same area, right? Like sometimes you see one or two birds in a certain area, but they were all in the same area. They were all singing. They were all like putting on a show. They were all enjoying their lives. And it was just beautiful. And I got to hear like different notes, right? So the normal stuff that I'm used to didn't happen. And I find that kind of stuff magical, right? And then I was sitting in the wood area, and I looked down. It was a dried up creek bed in the middle of nowhere in the woods. And I found a tiny little piece of pottery.
Wow.
Right? And
Yeah.
I was like, what is that? I was like, is that a piece of plastic? Figuring it was from like a hiker or whatever. And I grabbed it, and it was a piece of pottery from like way back. And there was no way somebody's brought pottery out to where it was and just like smashed it there. But it was like from an old creek bed. So God knows how old it was. And I was like, interesting. And I never find that stuff in Alberta, right? Like in the middle of the mountains, right? So who knows what that story was. So to me, those little things are magical. I love those things.
Oh, definitely. Those kind of things that just naturally happen, and like that, the pottery being brought to you, it's the perfect symbol of what we were just talking about. The old structures are disappearing, but we're finding even older structures that are, like you say, you could have found a piece of plastic from somebody that was just hiking, but you didn't. You found something that was much older and much
older, yeah,
personal, much more natural. And it's that perfect idea of, okay, we're finding the older ways again.
Yeah,
we're finding that actually, some of the newer ideas don't work and won't work. They can't be sustained. It doesn't. No. So yeah, that natural, that just moment of magic that happens, almost like you did walk into Fairy for a little while.
Oh, I totally did. I loved it. It was beautiful, right? It's exactly what I needed. And it completely changed the whole outcome of my day, right? Because I'm in charge of it. I'm in charge of if I'm happy, I'm in charge of if I'm sad, or if somebody wants to ruin my day, I am in charge of letting them, right? Sometimes there's certain things that are a little bit too aggressive, that we can't get over, but most of the time you can choose. You can choose how the rest of your day goes, right?
Definitely. And that's what they're there to help with. And like that, you can, it might be that you have that big moment that you had, that real kind of all the birds coming, and birds are really important to Fairy anyway. So, that's great. Or it can just be the little moment that is, noticing a butterfly flittering in your garden for literally for 2 seconds, and then it's gone. But that moment there was for you. That you were connected with that fairy. You were supposed to see that.
Yeah.
I say fairy because butterflies just speak fairy to me.
Yeah, they do, right?
So you that was your moment, and that can be enough to spark a completely different type of thinking. As you say, it can change your day, and again, as you said, you can choose what affects you.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to, you have to make that comparison. Okay, I've got control over this, and sometimes I don't have control over that, but okay, what can I learn from it? And yeah, it all just becomes, it's all just cyclical and all just becomes one. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and as long as you're allowing it, it kind of just flows with you, right? You can kind of just start working with it. And speaking of flowing, the other one that we both picked up on was water, the water energy, which is I think was really cool that you picked up on, which is great.
Oh, definitely. And when we were talking before, and you know, we both said, "Oh, yeah, water is really important in the reading today." It's like, yes, it is.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty funny that they brought that up because, you know, I live in a bigger city and I live right next to a river, which I connect to. I don't just watch it. I will actually like walk along the riverbed and actually touch the water, which is really uncommon in the city. People think it's dirty, right? And I'm sure, like, I'm not going to drink out of it directly, but I do connect with the water and I do go in and I'll put my hands in and see what the water has to say. And I've been doing that for years. So it's normal to me. So I completely forget that I connect to water on a completely different level than most people. And then when you brought it up, I was like, oh my God, that's right. Because it has such energetic properties. So when we talk about like rivers, oceans, lakes, streams, whatever you want to talk about, ponds, even, those are like the energetic fibers that come from Earth, and they help us connect to Earth and Earth connect to us, right? That duality is really important. It's not just us connecting to Earth. Earth wants to connect us to her as well. So it's like that flow, and the water is flowing, right? So it has the multi faceted energy that you can like connect to. So it recharges us, it hydrates our body on the basic, but it also recharges our energy, right? So
Yeah.
sitting in your tub, taking a shower, putting your feet in a river, right? You don't have to put your hands, you can put your feet in, right? Little things like that make a huge difference in a human body, right? And it's normal to me, but I always forget about, you know, my regular patterns. I was like, oh, right, I should probably tell somebody that this is what I do. Right? My friends are all used to it. They're like, oh, you're going to go touch the river again? I was like, yes, I am.
Yes.
Right? They always make fun of me, but I do it every time without fail. Right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, I'm very similar in that I love a walk in the rain, which I know is something that a lot of
Most
people
people
don't
don't.
do, especially here in the UK. You know, we get a lot of grey, rainy days, and you do notice the drop off in people that are outside, or even things like there's not as many cars on the road. You know,
Yeah.
everything slows down in the rain, and I think people forget that it's a natural state to be in. You know, you can you're not made of sugar. You can go outside and you can come back in after it's rained.
Right? It's not
you,
gonna, yeah, getting
you
that
can
little,
put
you know,
your
you don't
feet
have to,
up.
for sure, like you don't have to spend like a whole hour in the rain in like your shorts, right? But going out and like letting the rain kind of fall on you, depending on how aggressive it is, right? You know, depending on the storm, of course, like use your discernment. But like I am the same way. If it's raining, I'll step out in my backyard and have like a little sit there, come in, and I'm like a little wet, but you just dry off or change your sweater, right? Your jumper, right? You just give a quick
Exactly.
change. But I feel recharged in it, right? And I think sitting in that energy is going to be really key, because we were even talking about how a lot of the water beds, like we're taught to almost be fearful of it, right? There's a shortage of clean water, right? But you know, taking that into your own hands is really key. Like if you want to filter your own water, or you know, don't touch the river. Like here in Calgary, where I live, they tell us every year that the river is polluted. Like it's got a massive amount of bacteria in it, and like you shouldn't be going in it. And I was like, I'm sure it does, right? But like I said, I'm not going to be sitting in it for hours, and I'm not going to be drinking it. And you can always take a shower afterwards, right? But at least being able to connect to that energy is key, and it's essential. Because having that fear of water, like there's not enough, or it's dirty, or it's, you know, carries diseases or something like that, is lowering our connection to the water, right? Which completely makes sense.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Here we, as I've mentioned before, I live near a canal. You know, quite a significant waterway, and we get told the same thing. You know, it's dirty. It's, you know, it's you don't go in it, don't touch it. And yet every year you'll find at least some kids on a really hot day will be jumping off of the locks into the water.
Well,
You
of
know,
course, right?
they know they can go home and they can have a shower. You know, if the water's very obviously dangerous, then, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as you say, use discernment. But things like, you know, bacteria is helpful for us in many ways. You know, if we steer clear of everything that might have some bacteria in it, it doesn't do our immune systems any good. And
that's true.
we a little bit of bacteria is not going to hurt you. You know, a little bit. If you get a little bit dirty, that's fine. And that natural state of just enjoying yourself around water gets taken
Yeah,
away.
bringing back that playful, the energy, the magic of it, right? It
Exactly.
all kind of intertwines.
Yeah. And you know, again, that sort of childlike state. Most children enjoy water. Most children, you know, they find, you know, bath time is playtime. And you know, I think we forget that as adults. You know, if you want to take a rubber duck in the bath, go for it.
Right? You want to take a book, a rubber duck, make some bubbles, go right ahead.
Exactly. Right? Just enjoy it. And I think people have been kind of guided into taking water for granted. And I think that's something that they need to, you know, that's the other side of that coin.
Yeah.
Is, you know, it's there, you know, it's there as a resource, and it's there as something to be enjoyed in the same way that anything else is. You know, you enjoy your food. You know, most people enjoy their food more when they've taken some time over it, and they've been
preparing this beautiful meal, right? And it's really good, and you put all that love into it.
Exactly. You can do the same thing with your water. You can do the same thing with the things you drink and the things you bathe in. And you know, I know you're a big fan of tub magic. You know,
yes,
intention tubs. You know,
yes,
you can do the same thing with making
a cup of tea.
Yeah, a cup of tea,
some coffee. Right. And I do have a coffee video about your morning rituals and setting those intentions. There's a reason we're doing it. You know, you set your intentions. This is a physical thing that holds almost memory, right? So if you're holding your cup of water and being like, oh, today's going to suck and I don't want to do this and I don't want to be at work and today's awful, it's going to recharge that. Whereas like if you're like, okay, water, let's give me some energy. Today's going to be a great day and I'm going to see a miracle happen, right?
Definitely.
You can change the whole vibration. And even if you say it once in the morning, right?
Literally. Just be, that's it, just be in touch with it. And there are videos out there on frequencies around water and the you know, the energy that's in there and the and as you say, the memory and things like that. There's a lot of people who talk about sort of these scientific concepts that they don't really understand around, you know, how water works. But it's got its own energy, it's got its own spirit, and it comes with its own fairy attachments, hence why the fairies also think it's extremely important that we connect with it, because it's a really good way of building that, as we were talking about last time, you know, creating that bond and that trust is a really good way of, you know, starting that off, is to appreciate your water.
Yes. 10 out of 10, right? All right, is there anything else we wanted to bring up? I think we hit on everything.
I think so. I think that was everything we'd been told by the fairies anyway.
Right, that we were guided to come into. Awesome. So if anybody wanted to support our channel, feel free to tip us. We don't monetize, so there's going to be a link in the bottom in the description of the video. If you want to contact me for a reading, all my links will be in the description as well. And Helen is going to be offering fairy readings sporadically, so feel free to contact her. I'm going to leave all her information at the bottom in the description as well. And enjoy. Hopefully everybody has a magical week. And it was a pleasure as always, Helen, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me, and thanks everyone. Hope you enjoyed.
Right. Bye.
Bye.